Plays. I'm Profi, and this is episode 4, I believe, of my Shadowdark series, where we are using really just the stuff that's available in the through drive-through RPG. So it'll get you through the first few levels for Shadowdark. I'm enjoying it so far. I think it's a really kind of cool version of this kind of D20 based system like you might find in the most popular of the role-playing games. I don't know why, but it seems like there's an embargo on like saying the name of that. Yeah, okay. But in any case, so we're working with Shadowdark. We have our two characters, Sariel and Varos, who are currently at a cave in the marsh right now. So like right here is our map. Right, so we started here in the village of King's Ham. Then a will-o-wisp came and tempted away 5 people from that village over into the marshes down here, where we found some of them, not all of them, but we found 3 of them, I believe it was, in a cave, along with a merchant, where we noted that the merchants had not shown up in Kingsham like they normally would, where normally these merchants would be coming from the castle further up here. But what they reported to us is that they were on the way down to Kingsham, horses went crazy, they kind of got off course and ended up right here at the cave as well. Horses ran off when they came disconnected from the wagon. Okay. So we did manage scavenging a little bit. We did find a new set of chainmail armor that Sariel, our fighter, is putting on. That is going to increase his AC by a couple points, which is kind of nice. So that is kind of where we are at the moment. So we are here, 2 characters along with Muriel, the merchant, and also a couple knocked out villagers. We tried to rouse them before, but something about this mind control they were under, right? They immediately attacked Varos again. Varos is in bad shape. He has 1 hit point left. So he knows he's in bad shape. He knows he needs to rest, but this is not a safe place to do that. Because we also found here in this cave an inscription on the wall in Draconic, which fortunately Varos the wizard can read, uh, finding where it describes how something about this cave erodes people's luck. Right, so you become more likely to have accidents, more likely to just have a bad time, as the case may be. Right, so this then led to the question of, well, who is it, right, that would have would be interested in this? Because it was not a will-o-wisp that tempted away the horses that went nuts. Something else did it, and we're not really sure what it was. Right, so this suggests there is something else going on here. It's not just kind of a random will-o-wisp trying to tempt people away into danger. Rather, there is something bigger afoot. So, our first task, though, so at this point, we have had 3 things that were left in our plan after the last session. One is that we have to get the villagers who are currently knocked out. Now, there was one of them, because there were 3 villagers here. When we roused them, they immediately attacked Varos. Like 2 of them, we knocked back out. One of them was so scared, seeing companions knocked out, they just ran off into the marsh, and we lost track of them. As Serial decided it was more important. No, that was a different session, wasn't it? I think. In any case, we lost track of that one. So we now have these 2 villagers. We need to somehow get back to the village. That's the first step. Secondly, we need to rest so that Varos can actually have some hit points. When you only have 4 to work with, you gotta manage them. So we've got to do that. And then also, we need to figure out who was it that did this. Right, so I already have some ideas of how I want to do the investigation, but we're not nearly to that point yet. We have another 2 steps to do first. Right, so let's get into that. So I think it makes some degree of sense. So we do have 3 of us that are alive and well enough, right? So we need to try to kind of drag these 2 people back to the village. I think this is going to be possible as far as that goes. We have the remnants of a wagon outside. While I think it would probably be unreasonable for us to say, let's just load them on the wagon and then, like, human beings, right, drive the wagon, I don't think that's reasonable. But what we could do is take, say, boards out of the wagon, right, make a couple just stretchers of sorts that we can drag through the mud. This seems like something that is at least possible. Not going to be easy by any means, but I don't think it's even going to require rolls because I think it's just going to be a matter of time. for us to do it. And at the moment, we don't really feel like we're under specific time pressure at this point, as far as we can tell. So I think that that's what I'm going to say we do, right? So we go out. Poor Muriel gets to watch as we're ripping up uh, this wagon. But, but so we rip up the wagon, make a couple stretcher, kind of makeshift stretchers out of this. Well, we do have some rope, so I think it does make sense, right, for us to like maybe tie their hands behind their backs or something like that in case that they wake in if they happen to wake up, right? Since we know that they seem to be inclined to attack us, right? So we don't want that to happen. So we're going to tie them up with some rope, which we do know that Varos has. So Varos has the rope, so we're good on that front. So then we start heading back out of the marsh here back toward the village. At this point, I'm saying we're probably around midday, and I think like this is only 2 miles. Right? So 2 miles is not actually that far. Like if you walk at a reasonably slow pace, right, you can do 2 miles in like an hour or something like that. Now, in this case, we're going to be going at a much slower pace than that because one, we're dragging two people, and two, we are in the marsh, right? So we're having to like go through the mud and muck and all of that kind of stuff. This is not going to be a quick process, but I think that we can do it by evening. So I think we're okay on that front. One thing we need to do though, before we declare we arrive at the village, on the way, it's very possible we might have some kind of random encounter. So I do want to check for that. So I'm going to pull out my d6s here, and let's see what happens. So I'll go ahead and roll it on camera. Just hope it doesn't fly. Two is not a random encounter, so that does mean we do make it back right, to the village uninterrupted. We have the villagers in tow. And I think that it makes sense for us to tell the villagers about what happened. Right? Right. So they all saw right, this will-o-wisp take them. So that is something we know. Um, but I think that here, given their relative strengths, Varos is awful at charisma. Just terrible. That's like he's getting attacked all the time. All of the reaction rolls turn against him. Sariel is a little bit more skilled in that area, and he's kind of average. Right. So what I'm going to do is say that Sariel makes the decision that he's going to be the voice at the moment, and is going to explain exactly the situation as to what happened. Uh, talk about. So he's going to tell them about the cave. He's going to tell them about the fact that they were attacked again. He's going to tell them that these were the only two we managed to recover. We know that one ran off into the marsh, seeming like they were uh, insane or something like that. They had lost touch with reality. And we know that a couple are just still missing. We did not encounter them, right? So maybe they came back home. Maybe they are you know, face down in the marsh somewhere and lost forever. We don't know. Right, so that is what he's going to explain. I want to figure out what is the reaction going to be from the people. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just roll a d20. I'm going to add his charisma modifier, which is a 0, but it's just not negative, right, to see how do they react to this. It's a 3, right? They're not happy, right, at all. Remember I was hoping that maybe right, this village would possibly not be quite as turned against us as they have been historically. But no, they are not at all impressed with our story. I don't think they even necessarily believe it, because they already don't like us in town, and now we just, as far as they're concerned, we lost three of their villagers. Now, it might possibly be reasonable. Okay, so there are a couple things that I could do here. One, in Solo Dark, one of the things that happens is that you get a luck point when you create your character, and I totally forgot about this. Right, so each of my characters has a luck point that we could spend. So I have two available. So I could spend that to re-roll this. Um, I'm gonna do that. I mean, that was just so awful. All right. So let's see. Although we did spend some time in that cave, maybe we're just unlucky in that. So, right. 10 is somewhat more reasonable, right? So I still don't think he's going to get a great reaction, but it's not going to be quite as bad, right? So I think people are kind of maybe more dismissive rather than actively angry about what he is saying, right? So like they say that like a DC of 9 means if it's an easy task, he would succeed, or a 12 would be a normal task. So he would not succeed at that level, but he would kind of do whatever kind of persuasion would be relatively easy, right? So I think that maybe the people can be convinced reasonably well that no, we didn't kill them. We're not murderers. But at the same time, they are not at all impressed with our feats of heroism. This is not going to mean that now we have villagers opening up their homes to us to make sure that we can rest in safety, for example. Not happening. It's not happening. So, that being the case, let's go ahead and try to rest. Um, so we are again right forced to sleep in the kind of the circle in the center of the town, kind of the town commons area. Right. So to get through the night, we've got to make it through 3 random encounter rolls without hitting anything. Right, so let's see if we can do it. Right, so take the first random encounter roll. Nothing happens. On one, we get a random encounter. Another, there's a random encounter. So this would be right around, say, 2 in the morning, I suspect. Right, so about 2 in the morning, something happens. There's some kind of random encounter that occurs. So what I think I'm going to do, there are a couple different ways I could do this. Right, so one would be there is a something happens table. But I kind of enjoy that idea of using the something happens table, so I think maybe I will do that. And I neglected to open all of my PDFs. It only takes a second anyway. All right. So, something happens table is something that comes with the quick start for Shadowdark. It's in the GM guide. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn to that. And then we will use this as inspiration, right? So, like another thing that I could do is that Solo Dark includes the prompts table, and that would also be an option. I could use the prompts table instead, but I like the idea of using the something happens table here. Another thing that I could do, I did make a table of all of the creatures that are in the quick start. Right. So that's how I knew it was a will-o-wisp before because I rolled witch. There aren't witches in the book. It's a will-o-wisp instead. Right. So I could just roll on that and say, oh, this kind of creature shows up. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to say that it's the something happens table. I enjoy. I've not used it yet. Well, I think I used it once, didn't I? Okay. So anyway, let's go ahead and use it. Enough chattering, Professor. Let's just actually do the thing. Fair. Fair. So 25. 25 says a frothing, frantic horse with a saddle, but no rider appears. Oh, I love this. Okay, that's fantastic. Great. I love when this happens, when you just do these totally random rolls, and yet somehow they kind of make sense. Right. So here we are, 2 in the morning, trying to sleep out in the middle of the kind of commons area. So we know that King's Ham is built kind of in circles, right? So it has that kind of round shape. So in the very center of town, I decided it's kind of a commons area where it's basically a park. People come and like graze their cattle, that kind of thing here. And in the case that you're a visitor, there is no inn. If nobody takes you in, as is the case for us, because they don't like us for whatever reason, right? We're sleeping out there. And horse comes through. Horse going like frothing at the mouth, right? Effectively rabid as far as that goes. It certainly is going to wake us up. So the question then is it wakes us up. So is this actually going to cause any danger to us? Well, I think it makes sense, but we are going to try to calm this horse down. Right. So given their background, so Varos is a wizard. Now he does have a noble background, so he might possibly right, have some kind of um connection with horses. You could make some argument there that he would probably have picked up riding at some point. At the same time, Sariel is a fighter. Eh, So, and his background is as a sailor, so he probably didn't spend a lot of time on horses, I suspect. Um, but at the same time, Sariel is just more charismatic. So, so yes, they are going to try to calm the thing down. I'm going to go with Sariel. I'm going to have Sariel do it. Okay. So I'm going to do a reaction roll. For this reaction roll, I am going to use the table from Solo Dark. Right, so we already know the activity for this particular random encounter. Oh, let's actually roll for its starting distance. So it wakes us up and it is in the near distance. So here we are, we're sleeping, and in comes a horse. I don't actually have a horse, but there's the horse. It's noisy enough. I assume that it's like whinnying or something like that, because it is weirdly spooked. Appears to have been spooked for a while. Honestly, this thing might be dying at this point, because if this is one of the same horses, probably not, because it has a saddle. It wouldn't have been like pulling a cart or something like that. Actually, it's kind of weird as I think about it for horses to be the ones pulling carts, but yeah, okay, that can happen at least. Uh, yeah, so this might be a different horse. To raise the question where the rider is. Yeah. Well, in any case, we don't know right now. All we know is that there's this crazy horse that just woke us up with its whinnying as it is trying to run. So I'm going to say, like, we react reasonably quickly just because I want to interact with the horse rather than just have it run away. Right. So we get up. Sariel, being this one, right, is now up and tries to intercept the horse and pull some horse whispering or whatever out. And we've got a 7. Uh, Charisma of 0, so that'll just be an unmodified 7. 7 is suspicious, not hostile, which tells us then this horse may be a bit curious. Oh, no, curious is a 10 or 11. Does not trust Serial at all, but at the same time is a bit calmer than it was. So I think it's not going to let Serial approach, but at the same time, it is not going quite as crazy as it previously was. So might this possibly allow us to do something? Well, here's the question that I don't know about. I don't, because Muriel obviously came back to town with us. I don't know whether he stayed. Probably so. I suspect he probably actually found somewhere that he could stay. So I'm going to go ahead and actually roll on this. Uh, Roll for this. Um, I'm gonna give this actually effectively advantage because I think it is likely. So the question is Muriel still in town? So I'm going to roll 2d20, whichever is higher is going to answer this question for me. Oh, I actually rolled a 20. So it's yes, not it's Muriel is definitely still in town. In fact, that's an extreme yes. So he's extremely in town. I think that probably means that he plans to stay here for a while, right? So that might make some degree of sense if he's kind of a regular merchant that travels between this castle and this village, right, to trade and the like, right? It might make some degree of sense that he's going to try catching up with people, right, trying to make some connections, trying to like kind of rebuild after his cart was destroyed, right? So I think that he is planning to stay here for a couple days. So that is something that we know. Now, we also know that he's charmed for the next 6 days because we got a week. We got a week. Night has passed, or at least partially passed. So, kind of 6 days we're counting down that he's going to continue to be friendly with us, and then we're just going to kind of hope that he'll forgive us at the end of that, or that we're gone. All right. So in any case, so Muriel is still in town. It makes sense we would know where he is. It's not a very big town. There are only 150 people that live here. Okay, 147 live here. We lost a few. Right. Right. So we can probably find him. He may not be particularly happy with us as we're waking him up at 2 o'clock in the morning, but we have a horse in the middle of town that we think might be one of his. Right. So we go, we find him, we bring him here. He is a bit groggy, of course. And it comes, is this your horse? Is the question. Is this your horse, Muriel? Takes a look at the horse. Sees the horse. He sees the saddle. I'm going to roll as this is even odds. The reason for this is, on the one hand, on the positive side, that makes it more likely. What are the odds of there being a bunch of crazy horses running around? Occam's razor. On the other hand, the horse has a saddle that would have been tied to a cart. That feels weird. Right? So I'm just going to roll a d20. I'm going to use the oracle that comes in Solo Dark, right? So this works as 1 through 9 is a no, 11 and up is a yes, and then odd numbers are buts. 10 is a twist. 8. So that's just a plain no. Is this your horse? Muriel says, it's not. Okay, so that does raise the question. Whose horse is it? Where is the rider? Good questions. Definitely good questions. Now, at this point, this interaction that we had, question is this going to interrupt the rest so that it doesn't count? Which this is a very, very important question. Because otherwise, we're going to have problems for poor Varos, who just doesn't have any luck at all. All right, so checking out my healing rules. I apparently did not print those, did I? Oh, wait. Nope, I did not print them. All right, so I'm going to have to look those up in the PDF. Right, so the healing rules, I believe, was in the player book. Yeah, okay. Like I thought it was in because I printed out just like a little bit of the book, but not all of it. Okay, so resting. Here's the rule. Right, every stressful interruption of rest, which would include combat, I think this counts. Requires an affected character to make a DC 12 Constitution check. On a failure, the character consumes the ration because you have to consume a ration when you're healing, but gains no benefit from the rest. So, Gross, who has a Constitution? Oh, you got a +1. It's a +1. So as long as I roll an 11 or more, we're okay. It's a 16. Awesome. Right. So what that means then is that despite this interruption to his rest, Gross can in fact get back to sleep and have a somewhat restful sleep. I think that they have decided that they're not going to deal with this horse immediately. Um, I wonder. I mean, is it just going to wander off? That's possible. That seems likely, unless Muriel is going to take it. That's a good question, right? So I want to know how it reacts to Muriel. Um, so let's check that. So Muriel comes and is interacting with this horse. Right now, he can from a distance can see it's not mine. It's clearly not mine. But oh ho ho, 10. This horse is curious about Muriel. So that being the case, that suggests, right, that Muriel is going to be able, right, to get this horse and at least like head up somewhere. I maybe because Muriel is apparently very well connected to this town, has someplace he can stay for a couple days. I assume that has a stable that he can take this horse to. He would have to have some kind of connections for that. After all, he's the merchant that travels back and forth. Odds are he has some connections with them. So yes, so this horse is going to be here in town. That buys us a little bit of time, and Varos gets back to sleep. Okay. So go back to sleep and see if we can get through that. Okay, so that was the second random encounter check. So here's the third one. Nice. All right. Don't let's use the prompt table instead this time. All right. We just want to sleep, man. This rather reminds me, from my other videos, I have 4 kids, right? Um, boy, when they're really young, you just want to sleep, and they just won't do it. They just won't, and they won't leave you alone either. Now, my kids are old enough now; they do at least leave us alone. So, all right, so they at least let us get our sleep typically. Right, so let's see what's the prompt say. Verb 98. Oh, that's a high number. Uncover in noun way off. 89. Oh, okay, that's nice. So uncover idea. Uncover idea. Well, I mean, okay, sure. I'm just gonna say that, like, yeah, let's do the easy interpretation here, and it also won't interrupt Varys' sleep in any significant way, because it's not gonna be stressful. Now, Varys wakes up in the middle of the night, and he has an idea. Yep. Apparently, as his subconscious was working as he was healing, which I'm going to go ahead and just write this down now because I'm not going to make a combat encounter out of this. He also had to consume that ration, so he's only down to one ration left. All right. So as um as he's sleeping, apparently his mind some connections and starts thinking about kind of what is the next step. Here's, I think, what he realizes. So the question we're facing is who is it that would want to hurt the luck of people in this town? So there are a couple possibilities. Pull this out. I'm gonna pull up my political map. Right. So here's what the political situation looks like. Right. So the village of King's Ham, right, is in the parish of this abbey. Right? So it is effectively connected, right, with this abbey politically. Now we also have a number of other entities. So one, we have this tower. The tower, well, I don't remember the name. I might not have given the wizard a name here, but there would be a wizard that lives here. This wizard is not actually connected with anybody else, right? So he might potentially be playing some kind of role worth investigation. Also, we know that that we're connected here, right, with this castle. This castle also is connected with this castle. So these are politically connected with each other. It's that they're part of kind of the same faction. But then we also have, right, these two monster lairs. If these monsters are intelligent, they might possibly be unhappy with our the castle here. I don't know. I'm gonna have to double check all of these relationships. Right. Actually, you know what? I can do that right now, can't I? So A8, the castle here. Yes. So the relationships that they have. Right, so what we know is one, they have peace and trade with the abbey that we are under here in King's Ham. Two, they have peace and trade, as far as we can tell, with the tower that's directly to our north. Three, they are openly at war, but with the abbey that is way up here to the north. There's also hostility with another abbey that is this abbey right here. So a couple of these northern abbeys are not at all happy. Now they don't seem to really have any kind of relationship, any connection as far as that goes with these layers. That just means neutral. Similar, yeah, actually all these layers they just kind of have a neutral relationship with. Similarly, like all of these are politically connected with this city here. It's just that the city's connection here, and apparently there's equality between these two. Right. So in terms of likelihood, I'm going to let this have an impact on when we get to the investigation. We'll probably start this in the next episode, I suspect. Right. So he realizes it makes sense, right, for us to focus our efforts in figuring out what's up with these two abbeys. Neither of them necessarily have a direct problem, right, with King's Ham, but at the same time, the enemy of my is the friend of my enemy is my enemy. Sure, something like that. But from our perspective here in this town, right, these would be the enemies of our friends in these castles. So makes sense for us to investigate up this direction. So that is the realization Ross has. He says, we need to check out those abbeys because it might not be about King's Ham. It might be about what's happening up there. All right. So I think that if that makes sense. And then he realizes he's still very tired and goes back to sleep. So at this point, he has recovered. I think that I'm going to have him do a little bit of shopping here. Get, oh, did we have an encounter that would possibly lead to gaining any kind of treasure? I don't think so. I mean, like, we did have the encounter with the horse, which I think was dealt with reasonably well. I think that was fairly successful. Okay, let's just arbitrarily say that this horse, saddle, no rider. That's still something I need to make note of. No rider. Um, Was he just like carrying some gold in his pack or something like that? So that makes some degree of sense. I think maybe like Muriel like, checks the sides of the saddle or something, checks various pockets. Say, there's some gold pieces. Or keep them safe, and tosses us 10 of them. All right. So we then have for our party 32 gold pieces now and 5 silver. Okay, and I think I'm gonna have them go shopping because we're kind of low on rations. Might be worth getting another torch, that kind of thing. All right. So I think that that's a good place to end. So the question that we need to face is it one of these abbeys? If so, how and why? And is there something we can do to stop them? For now, this is Prof E signing off.